Welcome to the Dauphin Island Sea Lab and to the Alabama Aquarium for our Boardwalk Talks program. My name is Mendel Graber. I am one of the educators here at the Sea Lab, and I am pleased to introduce my good friend Chris Nichols, who works for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which we call you'll hear us refer to NOAA. And Chris worked on NOAA research ships for over a decade, and before that he worked for Marine Sea Lift Command, and he was in the Navy, so he has spent a lot. And so he's going to chat with us this morning about life at sea, life and work at sea. So with that, I will let Chris tell you a little bit about that, about his journey, and then we'll kind of open it up for a chat.
Great. Well, thank you, Mendel, and thank you all for coming out today. It's an incredible day out. We are so lucky to have the sun.
I need to speak up a little bit for those in the back. Brian's giving us a signal.
Well, and I am a mariner. I've been working on ships and boats since the mid-'80s, and I've had that's just led me around the world, from Boynton Beach, Florida, the other side of the world. I spent about 5 years commercial fishing before the Navy. I joined the Navy in 1991, and then I got out in 98, and then I took a short break, and after that break, right around 9/11 or so, I found the Merchant Marine, and what that is, the folks that you may see on these commercial vessels with all the containers or oilers or things like that. But there's a lot of research industry, scientific research. You have energy research. There's commercial fishing, shrimping, and all of this requires the United States Coast Guard. It's not an insurmountable thing, because most folks that are working on these ships have to have that, but it is something that you have to have in order. It's like a driver's license, and then of course experience and background and things like that. So the Merchant Marine is an important part of supporting the commerce of the world, the research of the world, the defense of the world, everything like that. And if it's on the ocean, probably going to find a Merchant Marine nearby. When I he was all I knew not going to have an ordinary job, and every time I see James nowadays, I always thank him for that one, and it's true. I think one of the first memories I ever had was, and this is just to time it, right around 1970 or so, I remember my mom playing the song Edelweiss. So that's how I like the punctuation of my life with music sometimes. So I might be able to add some of that punctuation in today, and you guys, I'm sure, have heard that song before. Those were all around the same time, 1969 or so. But family who were all fishermen or adventurers or soldiers, and they'd all the century leading up to that time frame, and all the things that had gone on, whether it was World War II or the Merchant Marine. There's stories about great-grandfather who was a chief engineer on Merchant Marine ships, and he was legend that he had 2 other families in other countries. He had brought I have pictures of the monkey. I imagine. But what got, and that, I think you could, at least when I looked back, tell the year because everyone's holding up a couple different haircuts. So in my display over here, but I could hear the stories that these cops about, we were in Cairo, or we got a chance to go to Alaska, or oh, we're going to stop in Singapore on our next cruise. Things like that always caught my attention.
Because there were children at the cocktail parties too.
Yeah. And some may remember not heard. Well, or to be, yeah, seen and not heard, but and there was a closet from the living room, and I would hang out in there because I enjoyed that spot. There were pith helmets and sombreros and things that my family had all in their travels. So this is where I in travel. I just and it was really cool to hear those stories. And I always felt things with my family and my parents and stuff, and they would tell me things. So it was really a nice way to start. I love kind of where I'm going with the story here is it helps if you have a sense of adventure if you're going to be a merchant marine. So I enjoyed Daniel Boone shows and Sea Hunt and things like that. So that kind of led to my start off. So now, move forward. I was not very good in school. I was always kind of looking out the window, and at that point, I just couldn't concentrate on things, and so I was always that kid that was kind of looking out the window. I made it through perfectly fine, but I just always had something else going on in my mind. I was a scout with that. Actually, my dad worked for the Boy Scouts for a time, and that afforded me lots of opportunity to get this adventure going. So enter the 80s and high school, and I went to high school up in Huntsville, Alabama, and that was a great time to be a kid. But it started in my sophomore year. It was asked, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? To myself, I thought, well, my dad was in the Navy, my grandfather was in the Army, and the Merchant Marine, and I just knew this stuff. So I in the Navy. So I get through high school, and then we moved back to South Florida, back to Boynton Beach, and then I started hanging around the docks, the fishing docks, the commercial fishing docks and the charter boats, and that's where all the action was. And if you remember the 80s, you might remember Miami Vice and all that stuff, and it was real. It was real. I saw it as a young man, and I made a ton of it. And that was such a crazy time, and to see all boats in South Florida, and it was really an electric time, and to be a young a young guy at that time that was really great opportunity. But what was going on was I had on these fishing boats. They didn't just let anybody get a job working on these boats. The crews kind of had to kind of trust you, make sure you knew what you were doing, and that they could trust you, because we were making a lot of money on those charter boats, and everybody wanted to make sure that you could produce. So finally, after spending about a summer cleaning up and learning about characteristics of the fish as a customer, soon later they started allowing me to ride on the boat, because I would scrub the boat and clean up, and I started to be able to handle the fish, and I learned all about of a captured fish. I learned how to clean them, to dress them for, for consumption so that people could take them home. And that was kind of the start of my work on ships. One day what happened was I was there early hanging around, and one of the deckhands didn't show up. So they finally said, well, this he's not here, Chris, get on the boat. So that's how I got my start. So I did that for several years, and I had this interest in becoming a captain. Everybody has a captain's license. So after that stuff, I said, I don't know how license. I don't know anything about navigation, and I'm a terrible student. I didn't know. Math was terrible. I was below average in math and all this stuff, and it took a lot to do that. So I said, well, I'll just join the Navy. And back then, in the late 80s, 90s, the military was a place to go get straightened out. And I remember my dad, after working on the fishing boats and having a great time, my dad said, Chris, you got to get out of town. So he had gone down and talked to the Master Chief at the West Palm Beach recruiting station, and I ended up going up there, and that Master Chief took care of me, and I really, really, really appreciate his interest, because I was ready to go. So and I left for boot camp in Great Lakes, Illinois, and it was the first time I'd seen a real accumulation of snow, and it was something else. They used to have to shovel the snow off of all the walkways so that you could march through, and there was this tunnel that Great Lakes Naval Station will remember this tunnel, because as your company is marching through, you had to sing Anchors Aweigh. The moment that you get under the overpass and get through, you would time it perfectly for singing Anchors Aweigh. So that was just kind of a tradition that the Navy has up there. It was really one of my favorite things about that. I loved that marching around stuff. So to the Navy, the real Navy, got to my first ship, the aircraft carrier USS America, and I look back thankful that I had the exposure to be around, because a lot didn't want to talk to the senior leadership. They were kind of afraid of them and things like that. But I had always kind of been exposed to being able to talk to people, and I got really lucky with that. So I remember one day, and I was in the hangar deck division. I was in Airedale, that's in the air department. So I was on the career path that would have led me into any part of the aviation part of the U.S. Navy. So hangar deck, and that was the V3 division, and I was a blue shirt, and I remember pretty much going to be was an aviation bosun's mate, and it was all aviation bosun's mate, also known as an ABH, was a room handler, and I at cleaning up and sweeping and things like that, because that was what all non-rate guys ended up doing. So I remember crouched down and I was sweeping up, and these I was sweeping up. Me and Master Chief, the air, a bunch of Marines and all this stuff, and I got knocked up. Kind of picked me up. Oh, hey, so, I replied, my name and where I was from and all that stuff. And shortly thereafter, probably about a day and a half, 2 days later, I got the 1MC, well, not the 1MC, but in the hangar deck air office, and I got the air department master chief told me, well, you're going to be moving up to the VX division. You're going to be working for the air boss. So Now I was working in the O10 level, the top visual flight. And if you remember where the guy spilled when Maverick went by, and wow, what a promotion that was. I went from a 150-man berthing down to a 15-man berthing. So the guy and let's see, James Love, Pate, Steph, and I mean, remember him. It was such a interesting. Well, and level, the quartermasters and the those were the guys that did navigation. So you're going to see my stories kind of coming around here. So in the back of my head, I still wanted to try and get my captain's license. So I asked them if I could come and do some on-the-job training with them to see if I. And I did the quartermaster A school, and I ended up. So now I course into navigational math, which is no joke, and I was nowhere near it, but I learned how to do it to muddle my way through. So I had my cheat sheets and everything so I could do it just like everybody else. There were so many others that were like me, as I found out later. So thankful that I could figure that out. So I went from the USS America, USS Yorktown guided missile cruiser, and when I got back, they were going to start. So that meant that all the old navigation stuff was going away. It was all going to be computerized, and all that was now out the door. And so after that, I had my time. I got to do a lot of really neat stuff. We were in the Adriatic Sea for parts of the Bosnia campaign. We got called of 93, went down to the Somalia Battle of Mogadishu. We responded to that. We spent about 40 days down there. And then later, we ended up on the America having a call before, and that was the first time that the Special Operations Command attached to an aircraft carrier without any fixed wings. So we had all the Black Hawk Down helicopter guys out there. So it was an interesting in the Navy. So anyhow, moving on. Okay, so in Norfolk, and there was a radio show, and they were talking about the United States Merchant Marine and this Sea Lift Command, and light, or maybe Navy ultralight, and because all this Navy stuff, but not be in the Navy and get paid a lot of money. So that was a really cool thing. So it's all kind of coming together. And wanting to do that, going to get navigation. I had the sea time in the back, and then ended up Merchant Mariner's credential up a whole new door. So around the world, incredible. And we were involved during the Operation Iraqi Freedom OIF time frame. So it's early 2000s. So I spent quite a while there. Now I have, because during the Navy I remember seeing one of my shipmates he was lugging this dive gear, this swim gear on, and I said, what's all that stuff? He says, I went to Navy rescue swimmer school. And I was like, wow, that would be great. But I was not in a position to do that at the time. Well, command, spend a couple of years, and then they have the civilians that could do this Navy rescue. To that, as a civilian, 36 years old, competing with the 18-year-old young folks, swim along, and they call. I could keep going. It was big feet, and I have big feet. I wear size 16, so I to actually do more Navy stuff in the Merchant Marine than I ever did with the U.S. Navy. So SEALIFT Command, and I were interested in starting a career at sea, that you would look into getting your Merchant Mariner's credential and then look into going to Military SEALIFT Command, simply because you get in really fast. And they cover it, paid training and housing and all that stuff. So that's a whole nother story, and it's readily available online. But I spent a bunch of time with MSC, but what happening at home, my grandmother passed away, and I was just starting to miss out on some stuff, so I decided I would take a break from sailing. So I came home and got, because I had a building I was taking care of, and the building, Maine, it had electric and all this stuff, so I wanted to go back. I found this organization called Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, who I work for now, and I still had background, and I had this sense of adventure and this want to get back to sea. There's nothing morning or at midnight on the bridge of a ship. There just isn't. There's something to it, and I missed that spirit of travel and adventure and things like that. And I got lucky, and got picked up to go work for NOAA. So that was 2010, and this story so much because my very first assignment, they said, "Okay, Chris, we need you to report to the NOAA ship Hi'i'alakai, which is it's home ported out in Honolulu, and you're going to have get out there pronto because they're leaving in the day after tomorrow." So it was really tight. They got my flights. I got out to Honolulu. The executive officer of the ship picked me up at the airport in a convertible. We went back to the ship, and there's people running around in short pants and bathing suits, and there's all kinds of people, and everyone looks like they're having a great time. And I said, "What's going on here?" And they said, "Well, we're going to go up to the Northwest Hawaiian Islands here in the next day or so, and we're going to do a scuba diving mission, and we're going to, be looking at coral reefs and stuff." So as we go along, we get going, we get underway, and we're going up that way, and we're working our way through all the atolls that comprise the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, and they go a long, long way up there, and they end around Midway Atoll, which is famous as one of our outposts. And it even goes a little bit further. There's another atoll out there called Curry Atoll. Well, anyway, we get going up there, and I start finding out more. And they say, "Well, we discovered this shipwreck last summer, and we're going to recover artifacts from it." And I could see that there was a lot of scuba diving stuff. So it was something, a very interesting time frame. Well, come to find out that shipwreck was called they hadn't named it yet at that point, but they told me that they suspected that it was called the Two Brothers. The Two Brothers was a Nantucket whale ship, 1820s, and it had been captained by the same captain who ran the whale ship Essex, which is a famous story for what happened to them, which inspired the story Moby Dick. And Captain Pollard had been the captain on the Essex, and that's a whole nother story. There's a wonderful book about that, and in the heart of the ocean, and in the heart of the sea. Well, anyway, and a movie. So it's a really great story. And anyway, we got up there, and they recovered the artifacts they were looking for, and it was about a month trip, so 15 days up. and about 20 days back. And we stopped off at a few other atolls. The divers got to go out and do their work, and we stopped off in Midway for a couple of days, which was, there's only a fraction of a handful of people who ever get to go there. So at the completion of that mission, I ended up getting orders to go to a ship up in Seattle, and I spent about 6 months up there, and then my next set of orders was to another ship out of Hawaii, but I met it in San Diego, and we were going to go down to the equator to do the tsunami buoy array. And they're spread all the way across the equator, and we were down there doing that work. And it was just an amazing opportunity to go to these faraway places. And then they had, about the midway point, there was a week off in Tahiti. So that was an amazing opportunity to go to one of those faraway places. And that's one of the things about NOAA, is that's where they go. They operate in places that in the sanctuaries that we have. They go to Guam, Saipan, America and Samoa, and there's other sanctuaries spread out around there, and even around the United States. But those were some really interesting orders that I had. But finally, I really wanted to get on the NOAA ship Oregon 2, which is home ported here in Pascagoula, Mississippi. And little ship, she's only about 180 feet long, and her mission is plankton and a shrimp survey and a shark and longline survey, shark snapper longline survey. And so we'll do about a month of plankton, month and a half of shrimp, 2 months of shark, and then another month and a half of shrimp. So here comes the full circle again. So started off as a commercial fisherman, wanting to get my captain's license. I finally did get my captain's license about 2005, but it's starting to come around. And now all that time I spent learning the characteristics, movement characteristics of fish and how their anatomy works and all these other parts of fish and fishing equipment and things like that, it has all finally paid off. And now I am the crew member on the Oregon 2, and I fit in great. Their bread and butter is this shark snapper longline survey, which has been going on for about 25 years. And I was a perfect fit for that. And because of all those years of tangling with hooked fish and protecting customers from cobias and whatever, and kingfish and things like that, but things that have teeth, and I knew where to grab on all these animals. So it was very helpful in my time aboard the Oregon 2. So as we're going along, I'm creating all these relationships and friendships with all these new folks that I've met throughout my career, but at NOAA especially. We're small. There's only 15 ships that we have, and they're all around the country, and they all do sort of different missions. Some do hydrographic mapping, some do fisheries, and some do oceanography. And you may have seen, I guess I'd say that NOAA Marine Aviation Operations, we're kind of dabbling in everything you might see on the Discovery Channel. So if there's an ROV involved with it, or a historic shipwreck, or fisheries, any things like that. So I just made all these really great connections, but one of the most important connections was with the captain, the master of the Oregon 2, and he really taught myself and our crew a lot of really great lessons. And always, give everything the full circle before you make any big decisions. Make sure you have all the information. He was just a really great guy. He started his career the same time, probably within a month that I started my career on ships. And he worked himself from a deck seaman all the way up to the master of this ship. He ended up staying on not that ship the whole time, but he spent the majority of his career. Captain Dave Nelson, he's retired now, but he was very good to the crew, and we all appreciated his help and mentorship, and appreciated that very much. But the other friendships that I made were very interesting. The lead scientist for the shark program at the time, Dr. Driggers, he invited me. He said, I asked him, because I knew that this is an interesting part of the story. There's an organization called the Explorers Club, and they were started in 1904, and they are made up of adventurers and explorers and all the folks that have done all the firsts, been to the top of Mount Everest or to the bottom of the Marianas Trench or been to space or doing fisheries biology and things like that. People that have things really going on that are doing this. Well, anyway, Dr. Driggers, Trey, close friend of mine, he said, well, why don't you apply? Well, I had to have two sponsors. And he said he would sponsor me, and then I knew that the administrator for NOAA at the time, Admiral Gallaudet, he had been the oceanographer of the Navy, and he was the first real administrator that was very active in social media. All of NOAA, Marine and Aviation Operations, loved this guy. He was just really great, and great to the folks. He was available. He was would talk to anybody, and I asked him if he would sponsor me because he was a member as well. Well, he did. Okay, here comes the full circle. All this adventure and exploration stuff as a little kid, and it's coming through, and I'm a terrible student, but I didn't go to college. I didn't any of these things, but when it came down to my application process for the Explorers Club, I wrote my heart out, and this would have been probably the equivalent of my master's or something, something really big like that. I had to write several essays and backtrack all this stuff, and lo and behold, it took me a long time to write this stuff. I don't know, about a month and a half. I really focused on this, and finally, I sent it up there, and about 2 months later, Dr. Driggers called me and said, "Chris, you've been selected." So it was crazy. I was just extremely honored to have this honor. I don't know. I guess I earned it, but based on my contributions to the Shark Unit, Dr. Driggers wrote a very nice letter and all that stuff. So I've got a lot of gratitude for the folks that I've met and brushed with over all these years. I remember them all vividly. I know I really haven't talked too much about the merchant marine as far as ships and the things on ships, but I really wanted to touch on the idea that a career can not just have to be a job or something like that. You can really, inspiration and knowing how to recognize opportunity, following your instincts, stick with your dream. It really worked. And for that D student in school that couldn't sit still, that always looked out the window, to be able to find myself sitting here in front of you guys today talking about something that I'm passionate about and very proud of is pretty incredible. And I just want to thank you all for allowing me to have some of your time. Now, I brought some photographs of my family, Mariners and my family, and a couple of other photos. That great-great-grandfather of mine with the monkey, I have a picture of that. And my other great-great-grandfather, that would have been my great-great-grandfather. On the other side of the family was a survivor of the battleship Maine, which had been blew up in Havana Harbor. And my dad had been part of the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was actually on one of the ships that turned away the Russian freighters. My grandfather was at Normandy. So the list goes on. I just, like many of you, our families have done very special things and stuff like that. But it's just really goes to show that if you really stick your mind to something, you can really make it happen. Mendel,
So,
thank you.
Chris still works for NOAA, and he has changed positions. So he is working a land-based job for NOAA rather than going out to sea.
Right.
But Chris, do you have any advice for anybody who might be eager to get out to sea?
For sure.
It's kind of
Absolutely.
like a practical direction.
My final position with NOAA on ships was I was the chief bosun of the NOAA ship Oregon 2, which I spoke about. I had a medical thing come up, so I was not able to sail anymore. So NOAA found a spot for me in HR. So now I'm a recruiter, so I get to go around the country talking to folks, recruiting at the Merchant Marine Academies. I get to go to marine trade schools. I've spoken at high schools. I've spoken at other events and things like that. So I've been able to do that. If anyone were interested in finding a job in a career in the Merchant Marine, the best place to start is with the U.S. Coast Guard, and that information is available online to get your Merchant Mariner's credential. And it's like I said, I think I explained a little bit, it's like a driver's license, and that would be your start. But if you had a background even if you had worked at an oil change place, or if you had a background in culinary, or a mechanic, or a painter, or things like that, those are the sort of the entry level positions which you might look for. Now, on the other hand, you may attend a Merchant Marine Academy, which would be for the United States would be the Kings Point, the United States Merchant Marine Academy, or just like I did, go to the Navy and start there, get some sea time and some experience.
So could you kind of describe maybe a monthly or annual schedule for one of the NOAA research ships?
Well, sure. NOAA research vessels, typically we have a field season, and that starts typically in April. Now, our ships are located in Newport, Rhode Island, Norfolk, Charleston, Pascagoula, Mississippi, San Diego, California, Newport, Oregon, Ketchikan, Alaska, and Honolulu. The field seasons kind of start in April, and then we'll work up until Thanksgiving time frame, and then after that we do our maintenance time frame. Maintenance training and take leave, holiday.
Why did you want to be on the Oregon 2? You mentioned that.
Oh, well, it was closer to home as far as South Florida is concerned, but it was the fisheries aspect of it because of my exposure to fishing and handling large animals, fish, as a young man, kind of came all the way around, and then I was a good fit for the Oregon too.
So, do you have any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Oh, great.
Do you have any Merchant Marines on your Great Lakes?
Yes, there's a pretty vibrant Merchant Marine activity up that way, and a lot of that works out. And we have some folks that we recruit up in Traverse City, and we visit Michigan, Central Michigan College, or so there's one of the schools up there that we do go to. But Great Lakes have got a lot of shipping because they're moving a lot of material around up there, and to Detroit and Cleveland, and all through that area. NOAA ships were up there 2 summers ago. We did a lot of mapping up there in the Great Lakes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So in all your experience on the seas and boats, what's the worst storm you remember?
Oh my gosh. Well, I can say that there was one storm. We were outrunning a hurricane on the aircraft carrier, and we actually we had to get out of Norfolk because it was coming to Norfolk. So we left. We didn't have any aircraft on board, but we got so far out to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that it was so big that we dunked the bow. And so water crashed up over the bow of the aircraft carrier. Other than that, I can say that the Gulf of Mexico is always rough. To me, especially on a 180-foot boat that just rocks beautifully like a rocking chair. But it seems like you can count on your hands the perfect days. You might seem perfect from the beach, flat calm, but at sea, it just in certain areas it seems like it can stay consistently rough. So that's no joke. That little ship rocking back and forth with all that gear and operating out there. We would operate during some of the storms. We would find little pockets and windows where we could still sort of operate. But a lot of times, what we would do is we would either pull in or we would get up on the beach and do weather patterns and kind of stay out of the super rough stuff. So that's one good thing about NOAA is that definitely if they're not able to get data, they take it easy, and safety is always first.
So NOAA's a big organization. Chris was kind of focusing on the NOAA fleet, which is pretty small, and a small group of folks run the NOAA fleet. And he started to tell you, and then something else, he kind of got diverted, but he started to tell you about the aviation with the NOAA hurricane hunters.
Right.
So they fly into the hurricanes and collect data, and the National Weather Service is one of the services of NOAA.
Yep, I have several friends that are pilots and air crew with the hurricane hunters, and they operate out of Florida, right around Lakeland. Lakeland, Florida is our new base for that, and they work kind of with the Air Force, but that's kind of our aviation side. And they have we have P3s, and not only do they do hurricane hunters, but we also do coastal survey, and where the smaller planes will fly along the coast and photograph, so they can kind of do their surveys to monitor what the coastlines will look like year to year. So they have their schedule that they do that. In Alaska, California, and they also do unmanned aircraft and unmanned systems in the water, right? That's becoming the new thing. They may be out counting whales with drones or getting constant feedback on temperatures in the sea and things like that.
Another question on the back.
Yes, sir.
With so many days at sea, how important is the food?
Oh, well, I'll tell you this, and this is one of my favorite kind of pickup lines while I'm recruiting is, and I always tell everybody, all of our trips are about 2 weeks long, 15 days maybe, 12 days, but I always say they're about as long as the salad bar will last. And they always love to hear that, because a lot of times the ship won't have a salad bar, and we have salad bars on our ships, thank goodness. And our ships are very well equipped. Some of our ships you'll get a single cabin. On other ships you'll have a cabin mate, but typically they're off on a different watch. We work 12-hour days most of the time, and you'll be able to kind of have your privacy and things like that. But the galley is so important, and the food's really good.
Chris, do you have a tally? Do you know how many days you've spent at sea?
I don't know.
Hours?
Boy, oh boy. Oh, who knows?
You have to add that up one day.
Yeah. I have 25 years of federal service, so I probably about half of that, plus or minus. So.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned you have family mates.
Yes.
Are your children following you in your footsteps?
Here's another byproduct of being at sea for all these years. I just started. I've been married now for about 9 years, and my two sons, 7 and 4. So luckily, with COVID, I was home for a big chunk of time there, and then now my new situation here, I've been able to be around for a lot of that. But oh boy, many mariners, folks have been going to sea for thousands of years, and they manage to have families. It definitely not for everybody, but there is success in it.
His wife worked here at the Sea Lab for 14 years. So she has an affinity for the sea as well. So
Yeah.
I think their kids are primed. They're being primed.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you have ice cream on your NOAA ship?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And
that's a thing.
they actually it's part of the union. You can't leave the dock without coffee and ice cream. Those are a couple of requirements. The union requirements call for that.
Also, on all Navy ships, they have ice cream bars and stuff.
Yes, they do.
Since the prohibition, since bars turned into ice cream bars, alcohol was banned. And also, America has billions of pounds of cheese stuffed in mountains and boats.
Oh yeah. Well, no ships really, American ships across the board pretty much do not have any alcohol on board. However, we carry it with us. And I've seen several times with MSC and Navy ships that when we get pilots from foreign countries, a lot of times there's a bottle of Jack Daniels or a bottle of scotch or something like that that is given as a gift, a token for the pilots. It's usually the master of the ship is saying thank you very much for getting us in here safely. So a lot of times it'll either be a ship's ball cap or a bottle of Jack Daniels. Especially when you go through the Suez Canal and tight places like that. Definitely we rely on pilots. Yeah.
Any other questions? So I'm going to say goodbye to the folks who might be tuning in and into our live stream. But if you all, well, maybe I am.